Hi everybody, I'm Blaine Tyler, come to you again from the Bigfoot Barn and Finding Sasquatch in northeastern Ontario. Okay, so today, first of all, I'll just do a little update. I'm still doing research, mostly off the grid. A lot of crap has hit the fan. Um, Things have changed with the platforms, where basically it's all commercialization and whoever makes the most money for the platform gets promoted to the top and everybody else gets buried. But anyway, I'm still researching, and I want to show you a clip here. This is a creek where I did a kind of a farewell to John Green, and in this case, though, I filmed a little 4 foot or so juvie hiding behind a log, so I called this Jacko, and I'm posting it now because John Green's been gone for 5 years, and this is the exact location where I talked about his passing, and then I also had this clip of this little juvie hiding here. So anyway, you can see him there behind the log and the gap under the branch, and when the follow up shot in the gap under by the log under the branch, there's no little gorilla shape. So pretty cool. See his eyes, his brow ridge, uh, like cone shaped head. Hi everyone, Blaine Tyler, Finding Sasquatch. Come to you again from Northeast Ontario. Okay, sad news in the Bigfooting world. May 28th, I think in Chilliwack, BC Hospital, we lost John Green. He passed on. Um, I guess in some way, we had to expect it at one time. He's 89 years old, but I mean, Mr. Green was very instrumental in the Bigfooting world as for, I don't know, showing everybody or setting up the framework and the structure for investigating and documenting and keeping track and, correlating reports, similarity of reports and what eyewitnesses seen. Um, he interviewed all the big encounters back in the day in the glory day, golden age of footing. Um, Got a letter, and he was in conversation with William Rowe, communication with him, thanks through mail. He interviewed Osterman, the abduction. He went to, obviously, to Bluff Creek a bunch of times, following up before and after. Roger got his footage there. Um, he interviewed Fred Beck after the Ape Canyon attack. I mean, this guy was huge to the Bigfooting world. Not only he did all those very important investigations and set up structure for what everybody else should do afterwards. He was a non-believer skeptic turned knower, and he's got a lot of books on the subject, at least 4 or 5. And one book, I guess we call like the Bible or whatever of Bigfooting, is the Apes Among Us. Now, coincident thing or funny thing, about a week ago, 3 days after, I didn't know he passed away, but 3 days after, I was at a camera shop, and you know, I was inquiring about lenses, and I just started talking about footing, and I don't mind dropping the Bigfoot bomb, I don't care. But anyway, I brought it up, the fact that I did that, and then, oh, want to see a picture? Well, I got pictures of him, right? So from behind the counter, this elderly guy comes out, who's a retired journalist. He interviewed John Green when he made his rounds through Ontario, and when he was promoting the Apes Among Us book. Now, that's so cool, and he was talking about how he got to compare his foot to, I think, probably one of the Patterson copies, or maybe another one from BC, maybe when the Ruby Creek prints or something like that, right after he went there. So how cool is that? And then within the same week, this week, the news flash on social media that John Green has died May 28th in a Chilliwack, BC hospital. Really sad. I mean, okay, so here's the Chapman cabin. Mr. Green visited the site more than once. In the next video, I think is his second trip there after the initial investigation.
In 1956, there had been several such reported sightings, which had been reported in small local newspapers. Mr. John Green, publisher of a newspaper at Harrison Hot Springs, British Columbia, began investigating some of these sightings. Here is John Green to report on a sighting he investigated in 1957.
When I first came here in about 1957, it was still pretty well open. But all this has grown up since then. So what happened at that time was that Mrs. George Chapman, who lived in a house down by the river behind me here, she was in the house and the children were outside. One of them came in and told her that there was a cow coming out of the woods. So she looked out and she saw this man-like thing, but about 8 feet tall and completely covered with hair like a bear. And she knew it to be a Sasquatch. This was, you know, quite a well-known thing to the Indian people. And she was frightened, so she took the children, ran down to the river, and then through the graveyard, which is right behind me here, and came out just about here onto the track, and then ran on down to Ruby Creek. Now, she'd really only had one quick look at the thing, so it wouldn't be that convincing a story, except that a lot of people immediately went back there and saw these enormous tracks. Mr. Tifting, of course, was one of them, and can describe just what the tracks were like and what they did.
Well, he came through the bush into the shed, or the lean-to of the house, and there was a barrel of dried fish or smoked salmon, rather. And he broke the barrel, and there was some fish eaten there and thrown around. And then he went down the river bank, and apparently took a drink, and then come back up on the other side of the house, through the garden patch, and up to CPR fence, and stepped with 1 foot on that side of the fence and 1 foot on this side of the fence. I can walk right over it. And the footprints was about 18 inches, like. And then he went across there and over to the next fence there and went right up the hillside. And that's as far as we could follow it. See.
That was an old clip. The audio's off a little bit there. Sorry about that. Anyway, the next clip is a track and hunting party investigation at Bluff before Roger got his footage. Okay, so I think that's a Bertram guy. It's hard to tell. I'm not sure if that's green or not. Doesn't look like green, but anyway, a group of them, including DeHinden, Green, went to Laird Road near Bluff Creek, fresh prints. The one on the right's real, the one on the left's a hoax. Not going to get into it, but the construction guy's brother put a bunch of hoax prints in there. to throw off the hunters, investigators, and to keep the men working. That's all they cared about, was getting their job done. They didn't care about these unique species of humanoid biped messing around with their equipment. Anyway, pretty cool. This is all before Roger got his footage. Early October, maybe late September. Cool thing about this is when these guys were leaving, that's when Roger showed up, and he was there for like a month. And a couple weeks into his trip, Bob Gimlin showed up, and then they hung around for a couple weeks, and on the closing days they got their footage. But there's Mr. Green looking at roadside tracks. I think that could be DeHinden filming him, or the other guy that was just walking on the road. Pretty important. I mean, and this is, I guess, the hunting party. White ladies there. They're trying to track down the Sasquatch, and without getting into it too much, you can't do that. I mean, it's next to impossible. I mean, now we're aware of their stealth abilities. They weren't then. I guess they thought they could run them down like some bears or something. I don't know. But these guys did the legwork to get their footage, to get their reports, and they deserve all the fame they got. I mean, a lot of people are jealous of people who get footage. Well, there's a lot of work that goes into it. But anyway, there's Mr. Green there looking at prints. I guess that's where one of the equipment was moving around. Anyway, pretty awesome. Old footage, but very valuable to the community, Bigfoot community. Right, so here's the Pacific Northwest Expedition, a Tom Slick funded group. DeHinden in the middle there, John Green on the right. I think Bob Tankmas was in there. Might be him on the left. Anyway, pretty important. Late 50s, early 60s. First group of its kind in North America. Before this, everybody was over in Nepal after evidence of the Yeti. Anyway, pretty cool. Here's John Green interviewing Albert Osterman. He came forward in 1924 about his abduction from Toby Inlet in BC. Awesome encounter. But here's Fred Beck from the Ape Canyon encounter. John Green interviewed him too. He's back at Ruby Creek. Here's John Green with all his casts from all over. And you gotta remember that he drove all over the country to get his information. He just didn't fill up his books with newspaper clippings. It was journalism, skeptic journalism of a phenomena that needed to be studied. And here he is, obviously, with Bob Gimlin. And okay, so The Apes Among Us is basically like the Bible for Sasquatch 101. Everybody else just had kind of magazine style kind of books, and his was journalism, investigation, and cataloging and events. And these are his other books that are also important. He showed us all how to put structure in our investigation, how to interview witnesses. He drove to investigate. He didn't just sit at home and put information together or steal reports and fill his books. But this is my favorite picture of him, doing what I do, what everybody else does when they find prints, casting and waiting for hours from the dry to collect the evidence in the hot sun, being bitten by bugs or pelted by rain. It takes a lot of dedication to do this, and he deserves all the fame that he got. Anyway, he's going to be missed. And this is John joking about having to cut a tree on near Bluff Creek Road, and there might be Sasquatches in the bush watching him.